Hello and welcome to the Anomaly Project, the agenda, the show where we look ahead to our upcoming episode. I'm Marcus Lowth, and joining me as he does every week is Steve Mera. Now, Steve, this week we're speaking to Katie Paige, and I've been looking forward to this for a few weeks now. It's going to be a great chat.
I
How
knew, I
you
knew it
doing,
would
mate? And
be.
what do you think? What do you think of this show we've got coming up?
I just, I know it's going to be a really interesting one. I've been following Katie's work for quite some years now. Back when she was at MUFON and she was Katie Grabowski back then.
Uh-huh.
So since then, it's not how long. And not just Katie's work, other people that have been highly involved in what is referred to as the study around high strangeness, which is a cocktail type phenomena of UFOs, the paranormal, cryptid, and all those things in between. You just kind of rattle your brain and think, what the hell is going on here? But it's becoming more and more of a subject of interest over the growing years, especially over the last few years. And there's been a lot of people which have been coming forward and talking more openly about this connection, and I've said before, I think this has been gone on in the past as
Yeah.
well because I've got some of the Project Blue Book reports, and it talks about basically, but very little, literally like one paragraph, a full sheet or two on the UFO stuff. But when it comes to the paranormal stuff, it's like they didn't want to know back then. It was like Mrs. Brown saw a UFO over the house as she was going to the farm. It was there for 45 minutes in the sky. And then for the following 2 weeks, she has poltergeist type disturbances and strange footprints, all things in the garden. And I'm thinking to myself, well, where's the documentation? And it's like, give them one paragraph, you know. And I think to myself, well, why would they do that? It was like they were turning around and say, oh, Mrs. Brown, we don't want that ghosty stuff, just stick to the UFO facts. It was so hard to put the dots together, I think. But now, I think, like Katie's work, she's putting the dots together and a number of other researchers out there. And I think it's absolutely fascinating because when you get into that, then you really start to see how profound this phenomena can be. I mean, it's already strange when we were just dealing with UFOs and what are they. But when you look at this scale of stuff, it's like blows your mind. You think, I don't even know where to begin with this half of this stuff. It's so crazy, but it's fascinating, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is fascinating. And I mean, like you say, I mean, Katie, she doesn't just research UFOs. She researches high strangeness, which you've spoke about many times. So we'll have to speak to her about that. But I know she's more than familiar with Rocky Mountain Ranch, which is now, it used to be Clearview Ranch.
Yeah.
She's the CEO of the Rocky Mountain Ranch Research. So she's more than familiar there. So I think we need to get some of the encounters that she's investigated and researched, and possibly speak to her about the four corners aspect of all this. The states of Utah, Colorado, Arizona, New Mexico, where they meet. They're all
Yeah.
kind of like paranormal hotspots. So it'd be great to get her thoughts on some of
I
that
think
stuff.
I think they are. I mean, I think maybe going back about 10 years ago now, I think myself and Barry were one of the first to see the connections with
Mm.
um, positive magnetic regions.
Yeah.
And it's such a and I know like some of these researchers are getting into that now, and I'm just so chuffed that that's actually happening, that
Yeah.
people are seeing the same thing. Because sometimes you think, is it me? Am I going a bit nuts here? But I'm seeing a pattern of events taking place in certain key locations. And I've got about maybe 15, 16 locations on file with all the same things happening,
Mm.
exactly the same. But they're in locations where if you literally to just walk to the window and look out, you'd see something like a mountain, a volcano, a
Mm.
mesa. You're just in areas of geological rock. There's something about the geology of the land
Yeah.
and the magnetic anomalies where these things are just strife. And they've been going on for a long time. And I think sometimes, these ranches are just put in those locations because when I looked into the Sherman Ranch stuff years ago,
Yeah.
and then with the current research we know now, we're kind of going, hang on a second. Yes, it's in a positive magnetic region again, Skinwalker Ranch. However, it's quite a big area. It's not just Skinwalker Ranch. There are other locations. It's quite a big footprint.
Oh, yeah.
And I think to myself, well, why are people knocking on doors and asking other ranchers about some of the stuff? Now, I only come across one researcher once that said, I have talked to other people and they're having things happen as
Mm.
well. So I don't think it's just that area of Skinwalker Ranch. I think it's a bigger area. And I think that sometimes it can be vast areas because when you
Yeah.
talk about animal mutilations, and I know that. she'd been involved in this because I know she's just got a book come out,
Yeah,
and I think it's called Snippy, which
that's
was
right.
about the horse. That was literally, it was just such a strange sight. I remember seeing that years ago and going, oh my God,
Mm.
how's that happened? It's an improbability that can be anything but something unusual. And I know like there's a lot more information to come out about that. So hopefully she might be able to share something about that because not much is out, be honest with you, about that incident.
No, I mean I know she's been looking forward to the release of this book for a while, and as you say, she's putting loads of work on this, so it's going to do really well. But yeah, that's a fascinating case because it's although there will have been, you would think, cases of cat mutilations that maybe have gone unreported in the years prior. That was the one that really kind of garnered attention, and before the cat
Well, yeah.
mutilation.
I mean, I've seen quite a lot of photographs people sent me over the years, and I think nothing really hits home like this the Snippy case because it was just so profound.
Yeah,
You know,
so
and
new at the
so,
time.
yeah, it was. I mean, I think it was
67?
1967, I
Yeah,
think, something like that.
I
It's the
think it
year I
was.
was born, you know what I mean? So you think you question then how long have this been going on for? And I have done some digging and looking into the past
Mm,
and found references to this phenomena. Now, you've got to consider, well, if we've got it, say, 100 years ago, which we did have, absolutely, then what technology would have we had 100 years ago to do that?
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah.
Did we even have the flying vehicles like the helicopters which we have now? No.
Nope.
So it literally, you have to say, okay, well, it's not us. Now people might question now in modern times, could it be down to the military and this, that, and the other? But if you really study the phenomena, you think to yourself, yeah, this has been going on for a long, long time. And I don't think really anybody's got the answer as to why, this has been going on for such a long time all over the world as well.
Yeah, I mean, there's loads of theories, like you say. I mean, I've read loads of them, whether it's ETs and they're experimenting with blood, or whether it's monitoring such diseases as
Yeah.
mad cow disease. But like you say, there's stuff hundreds of years. I think turn of the century. I remember reading a report. And it wasn't speaking about UFOs, but it was saying that a farmer found one of his cattle like with its head buried in the ground, and there was dirt shoved into the nostrils. So they were completely perplexed them then. But looking
Yeah.
back, that cow's always been dropped from the ground. It's
Well, we
impacted
didn't
the
know that at
ground.
first. I
Yeah,
mean, the
but these things have been
pathologists didn't
happening.
even look. They
No.
didn't look for it. They just thought immediately, is it an animal attack? No. Is it a ritualistic attack from some type of satanic group or something?
Mm,
Maybe. But when you really start to get the professionals in, you start to look, and they're thinking, no, this isn't normal. This is
mm,
beyond this technology. It's been involved. How did he do this? How is there no blood in the exsanguination takes how where does 10, 12, 15 gallons of blood disappear to? There's
uh,
not a drop on the floor,
yeah, which
and
means
you think to
they're
yourself,
either
it's
dead when
crazy.
that blood's drained, which is unlikely because there's
Yeah.
still be a sign of a struggle,
Yeah,
or it's technology beyond what we can comprehend.
exactly. And then sometime later, I think round about the late 80s into the 90s, we started realizing, hang on a second, these animals have impact wounds,
Mm,
and but there's no sign of what's happened.
mm.
Well, some of that broken hips, and do you know what? The hip bone on cattle, have you seen how heavy and thick that is?
Oh,
It
yeah, yeah, yeah.
takes a lot to break a hip bone and ribs and things. And you think to yourself, these animals have been dropped from height. And
Yeah,
then it was about maybe 4 or 5 years ago, I came across a case where, again, an animal had been killed by mysterious circumstances. And in this case, it was a cattle, and it was one of them that was in a tree.
right.
I mean, it was a small enough tree, but it was in the tree, and it perished. But it was like, well, how did it get in a tree? Because last time I know, they don't climb trees. Do you know
Oh,
what I mean? And who's going to lift that into a tree? I mean, you got to think, yes, this sort of adds up. So it's like something comes along, isolates them because they're usually separated.
mm,
If there's a
mm,
herd of them, there's seemingly one. It's taken and separated for some reason. We don't know why they don't stick to all together.
It's almost like a predator, isn't it?
It's a bit like
You'll
a
see a
predator.
lion come and the
Yeah.
herd and one will get separated and it'll zero in right on that one.
That's what's
It's probably the
scary a
same
little bit. It's a
kind of
bit
thing, isn't it?
scary, isn't it?
Mm.
But then they seemingly are isolated and then maybe taken somewhere where this procedure happens and brought back and just literally dumped, in a sense of speaking. It doesn't make any sense why we would do that because why would we do it? I mean, surely we can go and breed our own cattle
Hmm.
and do experiments without anybody knowing. Why risk the chance of being caught or
Yeah,
leaving evidence behind?
yeah, no,
That's what don't make sense.
I completely agree. Like you say, there's something that doesn't quite add up there. I mean, I think what's interesting as well about the Snippy case and other cattle mutilation cases is, like you say, there's damage to the internal structure of the body sometimes, almost like a high impact. And I was just thinking then, it reminds me a little bit of the Dyatlov Pass
Oh
encounter
yes,
with the Russian hikers. Similar kind of
yes,
high pulse type injuries, some kind of impact, damage to the trees. And there was, even though they were dismissed as, that's just, nature and the fact that, the body's decomposed with precise cuts on the lips and things. So, I
yeah.
mean, that's all really interesting
Well,
stuff.
do
It just
I
adds another level.
it is. I mean, I think it's actually one night we should probably talk to my partner Jackie because
Oh,
she
right.
thoroughly investigated that case and the stuff she
All
managed
right.
to get hold of, the autopsy reports and all the police reports and local reports and stuff. I mean, I was surprised actually at how much had gone on.
Yeah,
I was
yeah.
shocked. And that particular case stands out to me as yes, something not normal happens to some of these individuals.
Mm,
Um, but it's a problem, and it's a problem for people because especially farmers and things like that who don't like to report these sort of things.
yeah,
But
yeah.
it's costly. You can pay a couple of grand, if sometimes more, depending on what type of cattle it is.
Mm,
We hear strange stories about cattle moving. There was an incident in the Sherman Ranch, when they back years ago, it's a Skinwalker Ranch, where, I think there were four of these prime cattle, not your normal cattle, but these are
mm,
big and nasty, and they just vanished. And they were somehow squeezed into a small container. And the story is that, they couldn't find him. They were panicked. They went to this container. They opened the door, which had cobwebs on it, so it hadn't been opened recently. In there were these four of them in a dazed, hypnotic state.
mm.
And when we went in there to mill about with them, they started to come to. And at that point, they just let loose. They went absolutely mad and literally broke the whole thing down to get out. And it was like, that's so confusing. And then we talk about Ripperston Farm, which
Mm.
took place in Broadhaven in the 70s,
Right.
where the farmer's locking up his cattle. And then he hears the phone ringing, he gets to the farmhouse. He's locked them up for the night. There are 180 of these. It's not just 4 or 5 or 6, 180 of these cows.
Yeah.
He picks up the phone. It's a farmer down the road, maybe 6 miles or so, saying, your cows are in my field eating me stuff.
Yeah, yeah, I've heard
He
of this
says, I
before.
locked
Yeah.
them up. They
Mm.
can't be. He goes back there and they're not there.
Yeah.
And it's like, yes, they are in his field, but how do you shift 180 cows like that? It doesn't make any sense. And you think to myself, I think the Ripperson Farm stuff, there were large, strange figures being seen. There were
Mm.
UFOs being seen. They're going into rocks,
Yeah,
seeing
yeah,
a
yeah.
stat rock. And of course, all everything. You've got the three things. You've got that trio, phenomena where paranormal UFOs, cryptids, unusual stuff. And that was the same there. So you've got these weird and wacky incidents,
Mm.
including Men in Black, actually, with the Broadhaven incident.
Yeah,
And that
yeah.
was even that was wacky because a car pulled up on the drive, a black car. They've got gravel drive. They didn't even pull up. She's out there cleaning the window on the outside at
Mm.
the front. She didn't even hear the car come up the drive, let alone the people that walked towards her, which were
Yeah.
walking on the gravel and never made any sound. So there's so much stuff there. And you just think, how's it fit into the reality we understand? And I think Katie probably might touch on some of these things where we start to question about is reality involved as strange things, metaphysics stuff, because it's definitely something beyond the normal here. It's happening.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely. I mean, like you say, I think the thing about reality, and I mean, I genuinely believe. I mean, believe's the wrong word because you want to know, obviously. But, from all indications are, in my opinion, is that reality and how we perceive reality is going to play such an important part in understanding the paranormal, even
Absolutely.
to the point where, our own subconscious might, in part, be responsible for some of these manifestations.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I would love to get her thoughts on things like that because she spent a considerable amount of time in these areas, particularly Rocky Mountain Ranch. So I'm sure she's witnessed a lot of stuff like this,
I think she has, yeah. I mean, I think I recall that, from being a young child, she's had experiences. It came knocking on her door like it does with
Mm,
many other people, and she's had quite a number of experiences. But it's strange the path she's taken,
mm,
stayed in a location. That's how I kind of see it, a bit like me and maybe a few others, who had initiated at a young age with this phenomenon, and
mm.
seemingly the world takes us in a certain path
Yeah,
to get us kind of more involved. And she's doing it, she's more involved. And I think, the phenomena might want that in some sense, but it's also very cryptic,
mm,
it's very cryptic in many cases, and I think many people have dabbled into all sorts of different things to try and gain answers. And I mean, at Skinwalker Ranch, in the early days, when Bigelow was involved with the
yeah,
NIDS, the National Institute of Discovery Science, and his team were conducting numerous different tests. Now, some of those might have been more paranormal, occult,
yeah, yeah,
ritualistic, to try and get answers, to try and communicate with the phenomena. And at that time, I did some studies not too long ago and realized very quickly, found the evidence that Bigelow owned three ranches at that time.
yeah.
Wilson Ranch, Skinwalker, and I think it was called Flatbed Ranch as well. And I've got photographs of the people he took there were conducting tests. Jacques Vallée was there, Hal
Okay.
Puthoff has been there, John Alexander was there, his wife Victoria was conducting some tests, and it was very, very secretive. However, sometimes the phenomena gets under your skin a little. When you get a
Mm,
little bit too excited, I think it hitchhikes back home with you, and I think that's what happened to a couple of members of the NIDS and also Robert Bigelow, who confirmed this with an interview with George Knapp a couple of years ago, which is up on one of the channels on the YouTube. You can actually see that
yeah,
interview, and he talks about all hell breaking loose at home, the worst things, you know, multiple serendipities of bad luck, and just he recognised it for what it was. Eventually, he thought, "Yeah, I brought something back. It's interfered," and it did. And I think that was the direct actions to from what they were involved in doing
mm,
various different tests, because I think they've tried desperately to try and get answers, and sometimes you have to go things in a different approach,
yeah,
and sometimes it catches the eye of phenomena, and if you do it too much, I think it can track back with you, this hitchhiker effect. I think that does happen, and I think quite a number of people have to learn that you have to sort of take your time and not get too excited and want to do this on a regular daily basis, because I think sometimes it doesn't always go good for people. They start having phenomena at home, and that can be problematic, to be honest with you. You take your
yeah.
work in it, take your work home with you you
Yeah,
know
I know what you mean. I mean, it's interesting what you say about what leads you in certain directions. I mean, I'm working on the project about this right now, so I'm not going into too much detail. But yeah, I'm starting to rethink a lot of things. Things that I have witnessed when I was younger, which I just didn't really pay too much attention to. But now I think, well, if I hadn't have witnessed that, I wouldn't have had an interest in this. I kind of feel I've been slowly
you wouldn't
dragged
be doing
into.
this now. That's
Well,
it. You
I
wouldn't be
was
doing
just
this.
going to use
I
this as a
wouldn't.
prime example.
Yeah,
Our paths would not have crossed if it wasn't for a random, seemingly random
seemingly.
conversation I had. And it was
Yeah.
just, what do you fancy doing this? Okay. And then now we're here. So,
It,
yeah, I do think,
it's like it subtly stares you.
yeah, yeah,
And I think, because I've realized over the years I've been doing this and the things that I've laid out before me, I think the phenomena wants people like you and me and Katie and other peoples to get the word out. I think they
yeah,
want the word out. I think they want us to do this. We are kind of doing the job for them in a sense.
oh,
And I think that's what it is. I think, because people are kind of steer to a certain thing. And it's strange, that when you talk to other people, they've got the same stories. I had this experience when I was younger. I've seen this, and this. I kind of got interested, and now I'm doing this. I think, oh, wow. Well, if imagine the amount of people that that have seen you do these presentations or videos or whatever,
Yeah,
and all the people that I have communicated with, and everybody else in the world, we're reaching out to most of the planet. We've
yeah.
got to be by now. Everybody's in a researcher in this business from different around the world. We must be literally slowly swamping out with the new ideas and new information about this subject all across the world. So we are bringing a level of consciousness up, aren't we?
I think
You,
you're absolutely
me,
right. I
everybody
mean,
else.
I've already received a couple of emails, for people saying, "Look, I really like what you're doing. It's about time people are saying that, this is all connected." And so it's not just researchers. I think there's people out there who are enthusiasts, possibly researchers, and just people who have an interest in this stuff, and they're kind of coming to the same conclusions. And like you say, people, yourself, Barry Fitzgerald, Katie
Yeah,
Page, everyone plays the part. And I've always said, I've said this since day one, this subject, if, for want of a better word, it's too big for one person.
it really
It's
is.
just too big. And so
Yeah,
it does take everybody, and
yeah.
it takes everybody, to be talking to each other. So with that in mind, we should really get Katie's opinion on that. We ask everybody, where do we go with this? How do we progress research into the paranormal?
Yeah, it's like sometimes, when it's like when we talk about the strangest things that are left behind. A UFO comes down and it leaves one great big print on the ground somewhere for
Mm,
us to find. Didn't have to, but
yeah,
it does. And we go, oh, we've got some physical evidence. You know, with the animal deaths, there's some physical evidence. Even even when the spontaneous human combustion is always a foot left or something.
yeah, yeah.
It's like, hey,
Mm,
let's leave a foot. And it's the same. You're getting these strange prints, and
mm,
it's just like a one-off print on the ground, and it clearly doesn't look human. But you're thinking, well, where's the other prints? There's just why is there one? It's like, let's leave it here. It's
yeah,
like, oh, it just like drives you absolutely nutty. But it's evidence. That's
yeah,
what's good about it. It's physical evidence. It does provide physical evidence. And that's what's so profound about it because everything suggests it's not physical sometimes, but then leaves physical prints. And it's like the paranormal sometimes, walks through a wall, but then can prod you in the back.
yeah.
And I think to myself, it's all got that metaphysicality bit to it. And I think it likes playing tricks. They called it the trickster, don't they, sometimes?
Yeah, they do. Yeah, I mean, I think it's sometimes like where do you start? Because I know you can make statistics. I mean, anything you want really, but I've got a friend who compiles data. That's literally what he does. And you mentioned spontaneous human combustion. This is another one where you can interpret this however you want, but according to his figures, and he's methodical with this, like spreadsheets and blah 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 blah. He was saying about spontaneous combustion. Not always the case, but generally speaking, that's going to happen between 11 and 3, 11 at night and 3 in the morning. He
Yes.
had it nailed down.
Yes.
Because he'd taken so many reports and highlighted that's a tick, that's the same. Yeah, he's fantastic. He mentioned 24th of June, 25th of January. These are all apparently important dates where
Yeah.
things happen on these days. Even sudden rainstorms after bizarre paranormal
That's so
incidents.
strange.
It's
You're
just,
right.
yeah,
Yeah.
it really is. So we should probably get thoughts on that kind of thing as
It's
well.
like when someone goes missing, like a 411 case,
Yeah,
like David Pilates, it's like,
that's
yes,
right.
let's get the team out there. And next minute, the following day, sorry guys, can't do it. There's a blizzard,
Yeah,
or there's a severe rainstorm. Profound weather comes in. But when you're thinking about that, is something controlling that then? Well, if that's the case, then we are dealing with something which is control of reality,
yeah, totally.
you know?
Yeah.
And the masters, they're controlling it. And if that's the case, how are we supposed to get a head start on this if we're dealing with something which can control or manipulate reality? It's like dangling the carrot in front of us. We might never get there,
Well,
chasing it.
no, because if reality is changing around us, I mean, yeah, we've touched on this before. Say if somebody went back in time, and they changed the timeline, we wouldn't even be aware of that.
We
So if
wouldn't.
reality was to change,
Yeah, we wouldn't know.
yesterday the world could have been at war for all we know.
Exactly. We
You know,
we wouldn't know. And that is how, I mean, it sounds stupid really to some of these people, and they'll be listeners or viewers to this, but it is simply that.
mm,
He said we don't know enough about us, the reality of what we live in,
mm,
and the physicality and the our perceptions of everything. We just, everything we rely on is just our very nullified five senses, sometimes
yeah,
six, then okay, if you want to talk about ESP and stuff. But it's very, very limited. I mean, we are probably the most limited creatures on the planet, to be honest with
yeah,
you, because your
bizarre,
pet cat and your dog can probably experience more than we can.
yeah,
And at the end of the day, we think, well, how little do we see? It's nothing compared to the vastness of stuff that could be behind, around us. And there are specialized pieces of equipment now that science is looking into. It's looking into space time
hmm,
and finding big constructs of things and they don't understand what they are. And they're trying to figure out. We're trying to look out of the small world we experience, and
yeah,
we have to have technology to do that. But who knows what's out there in that around us? And I don't mean out there, out there. I
oh
mean,
yeah, yeah,
it could be right here,
yeah, totally,
and we're not. We might say, well, there's nothing there. Well, no, there's nothing there because you can't feel it, can't see it. But it don't mean there's nothing there.
no,
And
totally, no.
this is the thing we've got to consider now, that
Yeah,
it could be right under our nose.
yeah,
Right under our
completely.
noses, this,
Yeah, I
and
mean,
not
you could
know.
walk past, if you're walking down a crowded street, how many of those people are real people? You don't know because you don't,
You don't know.
you're just looking. But
Yeah.
it sounds bizarre to say, and I don't know how to explain this necessarily, but I suspect that the only way we'll understand the reality that we live in is to somehow step outside of that reality and view it from outside. And I don't know
Yeah.
necessarily what I even mean when I
Yeah.
say that, but
Yeah.
that's just something I think the only way to view it is to view it from the outside. And maybe that's how some people with certain powers can do. I don't know.
Well, do you know what? I mean, it's vast. When it comes to high strangeness, let's see what we've got. Okay, so we've got cryptids. Now, most of them, I'd say in the 90% anyway, at least, are usually kind of Bigfoot, Sasquatch type
Yeah, yeah.
creatures. However, if you were to go to certain places like Ohio and other places like that, there are key locations that have UFO phenomena, that have paranormal phenomena, but they're not seeing Bigfoot. They're seeing Dogman. They're
Yeah,
seeing
yeah.
werewolves,
In the
you
Michigan
know?
area, yeah.
And you think to yourself, okay, it's a cryptid, but it's not the cryptid we'd normally have, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And you think to yourself, in some locations where these cryptids have been seen, there's vast, vast fields, of nothing.
Yeah.
And you think, well, where are they living? And there's not much to hide behind. It's not like a dense national forest.
Mm.
Some of it don't make any sense at all. And then when it comes to the profound aspects of this, that some people claim we've seen exotic birds. It looked like a phoenix, from
Mm.
the book like Harry Potter, for an
Yeah,
example.
yeah.
Bright, colourful, long-tailed birds, which are clearly not from round here.
Mm.
And there's quite a number of cases of that being seen
Yeah,
at these different ranches, and you think, no, that's too coincidental. It's got to be part of the phenomena. Sometimes it's even people have claimed to have seen things like, the odd pterodactyl or
yeah.
the dinosaur. You think, oh my God, are they losing it? But they're adamant that they've seen these things.
Yeah.
There's the Navajo Rangers,
Yeah.
which we'll talk about. I think driving home one night and seeing a skinwalker
Mm.
running, keeping up speed with the car. He looks to his left. He's whacking his foot down. This thing's going at it. It's kind of white and reddish eyes, and he thinks, "What the hell is that?" And he's trying to edge his way forward, and he's ducking down like this to try and hide himself and put his foot down, just to try and get the hell away from this thing. But he said the way it moved was not normal.
Yeah.
Now, how many times have we heard that in places of high strangeness?
Mm.
We saw it move, but it didn't move normal. Like, it's like, was it above the ground or how fast? How it couldn't have moved that fast through that terrain. I don't understand. We hear that all the time as well. So there's definitely something about, I don't know if it's metaphysical or it's just playing with our minds. Could this phenomenon just be playing with our minds, and it's created in our minds and it adds it into reality? Like taking out a piece of a puzzle and
Mm.
putting your own one in there. you know,
Yeah,
to make the picture. Who knows? But there's so much work to be done in this. But the more you get into it, though, I think the more profound it is. It really is, because I don't think science can explain it all, to be honest.
certainly not yet. I mean, I was saying this to my wife the other day. Everything's magic until science explains it, and so we're kind of at
Mm.
that stage with a lot of it. I mean, whether that'll happen in our lifetime, but yeah,
Mm.
like you said, I think it's a case of more. The more you ask questions, the more questions that come up, and that's
Yeah.
just the nature of all this. I think until we've got a grounded understanding, we're always going to be grappling with unanswered questions, then more questions, and
Well, do you know
answer
what?
and more
You're
questions.
right, because there's nothing nearer to magic than high strangeness.
Mm,
I
mm,
mean, you can take your UFOs, you can take your paranormal, your hauntings, your poltergeist, or whatever, and
yeah,
you can take your cryptid stuff, you know what I mean? If it's a Bigfoot, Sasquatch, the Yeti, or whatever. But at the end of the day, when you start getting into high strangeness, it's like you've just walked through a door called magic.
yeah,
Because that's what it is, because
yeah,
anything goes. Anything goes.
yeah,
And you think you might be going mad, be honest with you. And I can clearly understand, because I've seen the odd thing where I thought, am I going mad here? If it wasn't for somebody else seeing it, I would have thought, I'm losing it. But yeah, I totally agree. My acceptance level's there because I've experienced it. But for people that haven't,
yeah,
I do not have any problem with people saying, I don't believe this. This is just too far out there. And I totally get it. I would
yeah,
totally get it. I would say, do you know what? You're all right. Let me shake your hand. I totally agree with you. You're right. But come back to me when you've experienced it and let's have a chat then and see what you think. Because that's what it takes, I think. It takes for you to experience something so profound like that, to acknowledge the fact that something profound like that can exist. Because it's a big pill to swallow. But I think
yeah,
Katie's done a great job. She's just come back from contact in the desert and spending a
yeah,
week there. I
yeah,
know what that's like because I've been there and lectured there, and it's full on. It's
yeah,
absolutely full on, and it's draining. It really is. But you know what? It's a fascinating place where people come together to try and share that information. But I don't think there's many that are dealing with high strangeness. I mean, we might see it in TV shows, like Skinwalker Ranch and things like that, and that's okay.
hmm,
But I always like to hear it from the, excuse the pun, the horse's mouth. You
yeah.
know what I mean? About their research. Because I like to hear what they know and what they think and what's coming. Because you're always trying to advance, aren't you? What's
Oh
next?
yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, basically, Steve, I think it's going to be an absolutely belter of a show.
Looking
I'm
forward to
really
it.
looking forward to speaking to her. Yep. So basically, you guys can watch the episode on Friday, June 13th at 9 p.m. usual time. In the meantime, make sure you subscribe to our channel, make sure you follow us on social media, and check out the Anomaly Project Podcast.com for further reading articles and news. Until next time, goodbye and take care.